Hi there everybody, welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict, which will major on the 2 days of the Sandown meeting, the Coral-Eclipse meeting, the big race won by City of Troy, and we'll get to him a little bit later on. We'll also have a look at the Lancashire Oaks from that Haydock card, where a number of the round course races were abandoned, but they managed to run the Lancashire Oaks, and we had a good winner of that. So lots to look at in the show. We'll start with Sandown on Friday, and we're going to have a look at the performance of a 2-year-old here in Anno Domini, who was 11 to 10 favourite and managed to take the 4th race on the card. Overall, it was a good card. Cerveto Asterius won in a fast time. T-Spirit just about made all again to win the 3:05. Almabeer back to his best up in trip and on softer ground. Trushan, he was back to his best on the ground that he loves, and Cock and Bull, a 5 to 2 favourite, won the last. So we're going to concentrate on Anno Domini, who won the 3:40 contest. He came from stall number 7 for Charlie Appleby and William Buick. Second home, Windlord from 5. Angel Hunter from 1 was 3rd. And Hawksbill, keep an eye on this horse, badly drawn in stall 11. And he's definitely an eye-catcher and one for your Racing TV trackers. Let's have a look and see what happened in this race. The context is that Anno Domini came here on the back of a previous win and therefore was carrying a penalty, giving £5 to all of his rivals. And for me, he was pretty impressive here. The early pace was set by Windlord, ears pricked, and he went forward at just an average sort of gallop in the early part of the race, 12.3, then 13.59, so quite steady through those first few furlongs. And he quickened up a little bit, 12.84 and 12. So it was a race that really developed through the final 3.5 furlongs. And that meant that we ended up with a reasonable finishing speed percentage, almost just what you would have expected, really, 101.32, meaning that Anno Domini, who sat in 3rd here, is 1.32% quicker in the final 3 furlongs than he was in the rest of the race. So it has picked up the pace from just about halfway. William Buick just nursing him into contention here. He didn't want to pull him out just yet. And I highlight Hawksbill. Look where he is. He's in a very poor position in an evenly run race, yet he comes home really strongly on debut for the Hugo Palmer team and needs marking up. Let's roll on then and see what this winner achieves. He quickens up reasonably well in the closing stages. His 5th furlong, when William Buick really asked him to go, just about now, 11.84, and his 6th furlong, 11.96. Now, both days of the Sandown Coral-Eclipse meeting, we did not see horses quickening markedly. We didn't see sub-11 second furlongs, and that is purely a function of conditions. The ground was pretty soft on Friday and Saturday. Officially good to soft, I think, Friday, and worse, definitely soft on the Saturday. But he's got to the front now, having fired those 2 quick sectionals, and now he's idled for me out in front. And I think he could have pulled out more if he'd been challenged, if horses had got to him. I think there was more in the tank. Look at Hawksbill there, pulling up. He's almost in front. He's come from last to 4th. It's a really good effort from him. The win time was 1 minute 30.96. It's a 1.08 above the par. There's Hawksbill just hanging. Tom Marquand said he hung. But he ran on quite well once he got the hang of things in the closing stages. So that win time above par. Now, that's the Race IQ par, which is a standard that the Race IQ team have set for every race that we are going to see on the channel. And those races will have their own individual par times based on the class of the race, based on the conditions, and based on the track as well. So this was just a little bit above par, 1.08 above, and the meeting average was, average time score was about 4.38, and he achieved 4.51, so he's just a little bit better than the average on the day. So a good performance from Anno Domini. I think there's a load more to come from him. I think he's quite lazy. He definitely idled in front, and I think perhaps group company next time up for him. He's a really good little horse. Let's have a look at a summary of what he achieved out there. Well, there's the finishing speed percentage, and a few of them finished off quite well, all the way down to Hawksbill. They all finished over 100%, and you can see that he was 38.01 miles an hour was the fastest that he got to through the 5th furlong. That's when the pace really did pick up, and there's his 11.84 in that furlong, which was one of the 2 good furlongs on the bounce that took him to the front before he started idling. Anno Domini, I think he'll win again. OK, from Anno Domini's success on Friday afternoon, let's have a look at the winners from Saturday, Coral-Eclipse Day. The first thing to say is that the ground was worse on Saturday, definitely soft. Swindon got an easy lead and made all. Makarova took the sprint at 150. Cicero's Gift bounced back off a bit of a layoff for the Charlie Hill steer. That's a good effort there off top weight to win the 225. Spiritual, we'll have a look at that performance in the 3 o'clock. City of Troy, he got the job done. I think that's the only way we can describe it really in the 335. Blake, good time performance in the 412, and Persica won the last, where the first 2 pulled a long way clear of the rest, and it could be pretty solid form. So overall, a very good card, and I'm going to look at 4 races from it. Here's the Race IQ Time Index summary. You can see that those first 3 times were not particularly good. The average is 6.1 for the whole meeting. There's a very good time put up by Blake later on in the card. That was the best performance on the card in terms of time, 8.09. You see that he was better than City of Troy. He was 6.8. Doesn't mean he's a better horse and City of Troy. It just means that in the class of race that he was in, he overperformed. So did City of Troy, mind you. OK, let's have a look at Makarova first up. That was the 3rd race on the card, and this was the sprint. It was over 5 furlongs. Remember, we're uphill on soft ground. There's the winner in stall number 2, and you've got her Purasang from stall number 7, and then Desperate Hero from 4. Let's see what happens when they jump out of the stalls here. Desperate Hero, very quick away. He'd won at Hamilton last time. Look at him there, the grey horse in the yellow colours. Twilight Calls completely fluffs it in the early part of the race, misses it by 2 or 3 lengths. Makarova then, 5th fastest to 20 miles an hour, 2.76 seconds. Desperate Hero, quickest, 2.57. And boy, is he a quick horse. He was straight to the front, as he was at Hamilton. And Hamilton, well, he just pulled away from his rivals. The further the race went, the better he looked. Here, he wasn't able to do that up in grade, probably because the ground blunted his speed somewhat. And he was taken on a bit as well by Equality on the rail, and they both went head-to-head through the early part of this contest. Makarova just tucked in, getting a toe, and that horse and Purasang come home pretty strongly in the closing stages. It was quite strongly run. The FSP was 98.89, so they're getting tired in the closing stages, as you might imagine, in a race that was run at a strong pace early on. I think it paid to get a bit of a cover and come late. Desperate Hero for a strider too. Look, he was going to win, but Makarova came home well, 11.6 and 11.93, and a slow-looking 13.27. That's a function of the uphill finish and the ground, but it was good enough to get past Desperate Hero, who was tired late on. Look at Twilight Calls flashing home in the closing stages, never seen with a chance after completely fluffing the start. It's probably not a horse to be interested in, really. Completely blew it and then ran on, getting sort of late headway into horses who were tiring. So I wouldn't read too much into that, although he did come home strongest and was fastest through the final furlong. Living the Dream, the disappointment from a wide draw. They decided to take a lead and just settle him towards the outside of the field. And I think he's better when he's just allowed to roll along. Winning time, 1 minute 2.87 seconds, so it's 0.56 above the par that Race IQ would expect for this class of horse running on this ground over 5 furlongs at Sandown. So just a little bit above that Race IQ par. I want to make a point about Desperate Hero. His stride length, his average stride length here was 7.38 metres. When he won on fast ground at Hamilton, 7.89 metres. He's got a big, long stride for a sprinter, and I think he was inconvenienced by the soft ground here. He'll be better when he gets on decent ground. He might go to Goodwood and he might go to the Nunthorpe as well, and he'll be seen to better effect on better ground. There are the details, courtesy of Race IQ. You can see that Makarova was 5th fastest to 20 miles an hour, with Desperate Hero the fastest at 2.57. The finishing speed percentage of all horses dipping under 100, bar Twilight Calls, who basically saved energy in the early part of the race to come home quite strongly. But 39.3 miles an hour for the winner, with that 11.49, his fastest furlong being the 2nd furlong. Often the way in sprints that the 2nd furlong can be the fastest of the race. It's good, solid form this, and I'll take Desperate Hero going forward on better ground. Sticking with Sandown on Saturday, let's have a look at the performance of Spiritual. who came from stall number 1, beating Indelible from 3 and Soprano from stall number 9. This was a case of Spiritual coming back to form. This is a filly who featured on the Verdict when she won on debut at Leicester last autumn. She's not won since. Let's see what happened out there. She jumps out and virtually makes every yard of the running, and this is a case of her really bouncing back to form. She was really highly tried after her win at Leicester. She ran in the Nell Gwyn, for example. She ran in the Rockfell as well. So she's had some pretty tough tasks. This represented a drop in grade and a step up in trip for this Coral Distaff, and she was taken on early by Bolsena, just to her left in the yellow colours. But thereafter, she was able to do what she wanted out in front. She bossed this race, and she's won quite nicely in the end. The early pace was quite steady. There's a 12.25 second furlong, a 12.9 third, and then a 13.33 fourth. So really saving quite a lot of petrol in the first half mile, whilst others are out of their ground, notably Soprano, who's right out the back and very much inconvenienced by the way this race was run. You remember Soprano was a winner at Royal Ascot last time up, but way too far out of her ground on this particular occasion and couldn't reel in Spiritual, who then quickens up pretty well through the closing stages, and they just can't get to her. She sees off Bolsena quite easily. There's Soprano trying to make a move now from the back of the field, but she had way too much to do and she just couldn't get involved. Regal Jubilee, a bit of a disappointment in the Cheveley Park colours. She was much more strongly fancied than Stable Companion Spiritual, but she couldn't quicken. None of them could in the conditions. It was tough work out there on Saturday, and Spiritual found loads for pressure in the closing stages. She had a tactical advantage, a positional advantage, and she made best use of it. And she stayed on quite strongly through the final furlong, quicker than her rivals. The 7th furlong, 12.92, was her best. But really, she wasn't being closed down late on. Soprano's made an effort to get into contention and then just flattens out a little bit. And Spiritual very much back to form here. And I think the key to her was not just the easy lead, but I think it's some cut in the ground that really suits her. What about her win time overall? Well, it was 1 minute 45.87. So for this class of race, this listed contest for fillies over this trip, Race IQ detailed that was 1.15 seconds under par. So this is a good time performance from her out in front. Her time index score of 6.72, better than the meeting average of 6.1. So a good time performance from her, courtesy of saving energy in the early part of the race and then picking up through the final half mile, and nothing could run her down. Look where Bolsena finishes, and she took Spiritual on in the early part of the contest, and she just couldn't live with this filly. She created a really good impression on her debut at Leicester. She hasn't really gone on since then, but she really is back now, and I think it perhaps will be the key to her that she gets soft ground. Now, this is what the Race IQ team made of the sectionals that she produced through the race. When the line goes up, she's slowing down. It's a bit counterintuitive. When the line goes down, she's getting quicker. So look at the early part of the race. 12.25, and then she does a 12.9. So the line going up, she's slowing down. Then a 13.33, that top point, that third dot, she slowed right down. Then she picks up as the line drops. 12.61, drops some more with a 12.5, and then she starts to get tired, and the line goes up again, 12.92 and a 14.05. But when the line goes up at the beginning of the race there, that sharp incline, that's where she saved energy before kicking on with 4 furlongs to go, and that got her rivals in a load of trouble in behind. Soft ground, step up in trip for Spiritual, work the Oracle. So what are we to make of City of Troy's performance in the Coral-Eclipse? Underwhelming, workmanlike. It will certainly divide opinion, that is for sure. Stall 8's where he came from, Alrifa from 7 and Ghostwriter from 1 in 3rd place. Let's see how this race developed for Ryan Moore with Hans Andersen, his pacemaker. He's a bit slowly away, City of Troy, 3.22 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour, 4th fastest. And I think that presented Ryan Moore with a bit of a problem, because now he's asked to ask City of Troy to go forward. He wanted to sit handy on him, And in so doing, for me, City of Troy's just got a bit keen with him. Remember, he relaxed pretty well when Ryan dropped him out in the Derby and just got him mid-division. He didn't really take a grip up the hill. Here, he does take a grip. Ghostwriter does too, towards his inside. And I think he was just doing a bit too much. Now, I'm not saying that's the reason, the only reason why he won just in workmanlike fashion. But I do think it's a factor. You can see he wears a cross noseband, he wears a ring bit, and he's just doing a bit too much under Ryan. I'm sure Ryan would like to be perhaps further back in a strongly run race and just get him relaxed, and then he can flash his speed in the closing part of the race. He eventually comes back to Ryan, and he's settled enough when they swing into the home straight. Although Ryan did say that just down the bottom here, he hit some quite soft ground, and that just sort of got him out of kilter just a little bit and didn't help him at all. And I don't think the ground suited him at all. I think it just blunted his speed, and I think he hated it out there. I think that's why he hung right in the closing stages and wasn't able to quicken up in the latter part of the race. Ryan rode an even race, 100.90 the finishing speed percentage. So Ryan's got it absolutely right. He's not gone too fast, he's not gone too slow. And City of Troy has responded by just coming home evenly, really, 12.22, 12.77 and 13.79. You'd expect much quicker sectionals from him. We know he's much faster than that from what he's done previously in races like the Dewhurst, but he can't flash his speed. His final time, 1.66 under the race IQ par. So it's quite a strongly run race, really. It's a better time than you would expect from horses in a Group 1 over a mile and a quarter at Sandown in these conditions. But he's had to work pretty hard. He's hung right across to that far rail. Al Riffa briefly threatened. He came home stronger than City of Troy, according to the sectionals, but he couldn't get to him. And I think when City of Troy got to the rail, he just found a little bit more in the closing stages. And I'm sure there's plenty more in the tank. But this was an awkward ride for Ryan. He starts to hang. Just as Ryan starts to get hold of him, you can see he starts to hang. And look at what's Ryan's left hand. He's trying to get him out, trying to get him to come round Hans Andersen. He wants to lug to his right. Eventually, when he gets clear of Hans Andersen, then he goes there. Ryan's quick to get his whip into his right hand to try and straighten him out, but he wants to go right throughout the final couple of furlongs. I think that might be the ground. We don't associate those slowish final 3 furlongs sectionals with City of Troy. He can really quicken. I just think he wants better ground to be able to flash that. His average stride length in the race, 7.37 metres. Ghostwriter only 7.19. So that's a big long stride that he showed here, and he's got no knee curl as well. I don't think he's suited by soft ground. He wants decent ground. But nonetheless, he's got the job done, but there's going to be a load more to come from him over this trip of 10 furlongs when he gets better ground. Let's have a look at the summary and see what he did out there. It's nothing spectacular as far as the data is concerned. He wins by a length, a hard-fought length, really, rated evenly by Ryan. You see Al Riffa came home quite strongly. The fastest furlong was 12.09 seconds, and City of Troy couldn't do that. His fastest was 12.22. That really doesn't describe City of Troy's raw ability. He's miles better than that. Ryan suggested that he might win by 10 lengths. He thought he would, but the ground's blunted his speed and he couldn't. I wouldn't be surprised if he could beat this lot by 10 lengths on better ground. But he remains, for me, a horse with all of his ability intact. Things just weren't right for him. The ground was too soft and he couldn't flash his speed. In the Dewhurst he did. Look at his top speed in the Dewhurst, 40.39 miles an hour. The Derby, 38.53, over 2 furlongs further. But the Eclipse, he could only reach a speed of 37.37. Speed blunted, but nonetheless, another Group 1 in the bag. And I'm expecting a spectacular performance from him if he gets good ground in the Juddmonte International at York, if indeed that's where they decide to go. His ability really does remain intact for me. Well, following the Coral-Eclipse, there was a handicap over a mile and a quarter, same trip as the Eclipse, and I wanted to have a look at it because I think the winner's pretty good on soft ground. It's Blake from stall 11, beating Midnight Rumble from 1, Prep School from stall number 3. Let's have a look and see what happened in this race. And Blake was slowly away. He didn't get into stride as quick as some of his rivals. You can see him just towards the outside there. His brake speed was quite slow, 3.05 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour, 6th fastest in the race, but soon taken forward by Billy Loughnane and taken wide as well. Perhaps sensibly, really, because the Hun went forward and was quite keen in the lead at this stage, and Billy didn't want to get involved in a bit of a speed duel, so he decided to sit out wide and away from that horse who was going a little bit keenly. And thereafter, Blake dominates this contest. It was a truly run race. I wanted to use this contest to be able to compare it with the Eclipse in terms of time. Now, the Eclipse was a quicker time. It was over a second quicker than this. But the Race IQ par time for this race is different to the Eclipse, even though they're over the same distance, because the Race IQ par times are taking into account the class of race and the class of horse that's running in it. So this horse went 3.98 under the par that you would expect for a handicap over this trip in soft ground at Sandown, and that equated to being the best time performance overall on the day. Blake, suited by coming back to softer ground, always prominent in an evenly run contest. He was finishing the race with an FSP of 99.07%. So he's been rated evenly by Billy Loughnane, keen not to get into a duel with the Hun. That was sensible. That was the best bit of riding in the race by not getting involved early. And now he cruises up to the lead and comes home pretty strongly to land this. His fastest furlong was much earlier in the race, the second furlong, when Billy Loughnane took him out wide of 11.88, and he just runs home evenly here, and nothing can make up much ground. The runner-ups run pretty well. The Irish Raider Midnight Rumble with Prep School back in 3rd place, but look at them, they're all going up and down on the spot really in the closing stages. The ground has really found out a few of these. Nothing could finish off. Ashariba with the big white face travelled well, looked threatening turning for home, but couldn't pick up in the conditions. But this horse, Blake, really enjoyed the soft ground that he encountered here. His 2 wins in his career have come when the ground has been described officially as soft. So his time index score here, 8.09, which is much better than the meeting average of 6.1. You can see that his overall time of 2:10.98, much better than would be expected in this class of race. So he's a horse to follow going forward, with the caveat that he really does want a little bit of cut in the ground. It was a good effort from him. The second horse, he just came home a little bit better than the winner. He finished off the final furlong just a little bit better, according to the sectionals, but he was never really getting there. And Blake, who got a bit stewed up down at the start and got a bit sweaty, won pretty well in the end. Official margin, a length and 3/4. Evenly run race. Blake sensibly ridden to the 4 by Billy Loughnane, away from the other pace setter, and wins easily in his favoured soft ground. Let's turn our attentions to Haydock on Saturday afternoon. Unfortunately, after the Lancashire Oaks, the round course races were abandoned because horses were seen to slip a little bit on the bend. And we had one here take a false step. That's Tiffany down towards the inside. But I think overall was a pretty good race. There's the winner, Queen of the Pride, who came out of stall 2. Tiffany from stall 1 and Lady Boba from 5. Sweet Memories highlighted there. The 4th horse coming back off a layoff. Looked a little bit rusty. I think there's more to come from Sweet Memories going forward. Keep an eye on her wherever she goes next. So 1.5 miles was the trip, and I think this is a good performance from Queen of the Pride. She's getting better. She was facing Lady Boba, who she met in the Pinnacle last time here at Haydock, and she's beaten her even more comprehensively on this particular occasion. Now, they'd already had trouble with the bend at Haydock. They'd inspected after the previous round course race. They decided that racing could go ahead, and you can see jockeys are staying right across to the far side, but they cut across when it comes to turning into the home straight. And Tiffany, who sat in 3rd on the inside under Luke Morris, will take a false step, and that didn't help her at all. I don't think she'd have won bar that, but it's never a good thing if you lose momentum like that. And she was slightly inconvenienced. Queen of the Pride, on the other hand, was held up and got a very smooth run through the race. Roaring Lion, sadly no longer with us. He's proving to be a good sire. He's got one and only crop, and this is another Group 2 winner for him, and beautifully handled by Oisin Murphy, I thought, really nicely delivered. How was this race run? Finishing speed percentage 102.57. So it was quite a strongly run race, with the winner coming home 2.57% quicker than she'd run the earlier part of the race. And it was a well-timed challenge from Oisin Murphy. And when you calculate that finishing speed percentage, you can boil it down into the final 3 furlongs. And if you look at them, you'll see how dominant she was. Her final 3 furlongs, 37.11. The runner-up, nowhere near that, 37.74. So she's much better through the final 3 furlongs than the rest of her rivals. Here she goes then, 9th furlong, 11.96, much better ground than we saw at Sandown. This was good ground, and she's quickened up quite well to do that, 11.96. And then she does 11.71, so 2 sub-12 second furlongs take her past Tiffany. Oisin Murphy had waited to deliver her. He got her to the front between the 2 and the 1, and she runs out a really good winner. You can see that Lady Boba's boxing on okay, having a good tussle with Tiffany for second place, but this is a nice performance from a lightly raced filly by Roaring Lion, who is going to be capable of cutting it against fillies, I think, in better company. She's won that a shade comfortably, and a nice turn of foot in the closing stages. What about the overall time that she was able to achieve here? It was okay, actually. It was 2 minutes 31.4, just over a second under the race IQ par, and time index score was 6.52. Meeting average 4.88, but we can't take anything from the average because we didn't have enough races to go on. But I think that's a pretty good time, going a second under par. So fillies would be expected to run about a second slower, according to the race IQ data, in a listed contest on that ground at Haydock. So she's done really well, and I think she was pretty dominant with that 102.57 finishing speed percentage, and she won 3 lengths in the end from Tiffany and Lady Boba. She's definitely a filly to keep on the right side of. Queen of the Pride, who took the Lancashire Oaks. So that sums up what we saw over the weekend. City of Troy didn't do what most of us had expected, but I think he's still got that in the locker going forward. I can't wait to see him again, but it must be on fast ground for him to be able to flash his speed and his class. I'll see you next time.